Veronica Rodriguez, see that you joined. Do you want to do a sound check, please?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. Let's see. Bill Watson, have you been able to join? No. Well, Roderick Franks? Hi, Roderick. Do you want to do a sound check, please?
Yep. Happy Friday, everyone.
Hello, thank you for joining. Kristen Stranger, have you been able to join?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Kristen. Rogelio Tapia, have you joined?
We're preparing for runway takeoff line, runway 6, Mark 23.
Oh, I think he said that he's not going to make it after all. Okay, Bill Watson?
No, I'm here instead.
Oh, he said he's. Okay,
Very good.
then that's everybody, Mike.
Trying to slowly get you like back, I think it's the old switcheroo there. It's like, oh, I'm busy. Oh.
We have quorum, Michael.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is our March meeting. Thank you all for being here. We did confirm quorum.
Yes.
Okay, our agenda is going to be a little lighter on the action items. We have 3 in consent, and then we have a much more robust informational set of topics. We have 9 to go through, and then we'll get you out of here on time and back to your Friday to-dos. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and open up the public comment on items that are not listed on the agenda. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and proceed with our consent items. I believe we have 3, our minutes, a Deloitte change order, and a Gainwell. Holly for that.
This is Holly Murphy, Chief Administrative Officer, and go to the next slide there. Well, first are the minutes from the prior meeting. There are several action items that we captured from the last several meetings. Actually, the recurring action items are scheduled for May updates. The monthly performance report is attached to the board package. And then for the analytics action items, those will be covered as part of the informational topic. And then there is also an action item for monthly updates regarding infrastructure that will also be provided during the informational items. And then lastly, there was a request for an overview of workload management functionality, and that is also part of the informational items today. For the change orders, we have a Deloitte change order 7 that includes 4 premise items and 1 county purchase. We're seeking approval to utilize 3.5 million of the original 60.8 million for the 4 premise items, which includes HR1 automation. There's return mail processing, Medi-Cal expansion freeze for adults 19 and older without CIS, and auditor access profile. And approval of that component will leave 21.7 for future changes. And then the county purchase under the Deloitte change order is associated with Fresno County's purpose-built data set, and that accounts for the current year post-transition. And that will leave a balance of 18.8 for future county purchases. For Gainwell, we have change order 8, and there are 4 county purchases within that. And the 4 are kiosk printer refresh for San Benito County, Calabrio cloud storage retention for LA County, and 2 for Merced, 1 for kiosks, and 1 for Microsoft Extended Security Update licenses. Board approval of that change order will leave 21.4 million for future work, and all of these costs are accounted for through premise or county funding and accounted for in the JPA project budget. Back to you, Michael.
So when it comes to the county purchases on the infrastructure side, where we have equipment and things like that, how is that budgeted?
Oh, that we draw down from the county purchase allowance
Okay.
as county purchases are approved. So there's no change to the overall total contract value, but they vary in nature. They're very limited to only kiosk related items for equipment.
They don't do desktop stuff anymore. That could change. Okay. Any other questions, comments, from our board members or state partners on any of the three in the slate for consent? Any online? Hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the slate?
So who was,
Veronica, so moved.
Roger, and then Veronica will second it.
Yeah. Marla?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Roderick,
Yes.
Ethan,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Francina,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
had the motion. Veronica,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
and, what did you say?
No,
Yeah.
but yes, I'm a yes.
Yes, okay. All right.
Yeah, just for the record, Roger was the one that made
Yeah.
the motion and then the second.
Veronica?
Oh, I didn't hear Veronica. Okay, sorry, Veronica.
All the other
Okay.
affirmative votes.
Yep.
All right, motion passed. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to our informational items, starting off with the collaboration model. I believe Ashley is going to lead that.
Yeah.
This room is interesting. Okay. This is the microphone. We're good. All right. Thank you for bumping me up on the agenda. I felt very excited. So I'm going to walk you through a quick summary of the items that came out of the collaboration model in January. These will be in priority order as the group identified them. So we'll go through them two at a time, but you can see the whole order here. It was a really great meeting. They came up with some really fantastic ideas. Go ahead, please. Initiative requests 1 and 2. The first one is the customer change reporting assistant. And this is really to provide guided support to customers within the portal as they are reporting a change. So whether it would be prompts or nudges, it would really help the customer if they're going to report, say, a change in housing expenses or address, it would nudge them to report other changes as well that may be required to really reduce the need for further customer contact and delays in processing. So that's a really exciting idea that the group brought forward. The next one is the real-time secure upload and e-signature link for client assistance. And this would be an alternate way for a worker to obtain verification from a customer during the process. So they could ideally, send them a link via text where they could upload something immediately, and then magically all the wizards will figure out how to make all that go into the system and benefits Cal and all of that. Go ahead, please. The next one is enhanced upload categorization and benefits Cal. And this would be looking at the way the document upload process is structured to create sort of a more tiered and guided flow for how documents are categorized when someone submits something. So if you've got like a dedicated proof of residence category, then the guidance would let them know this is the kind of documentation you could put there. And then that in turn would generate a specific task for when it goes into the system for the worker. The next one would be also was for document imaging. And this was also looking at ways to improve the imaging process, but a little bit differently, more guidance on how to provide customers the right, when they have multiple cases in the system, to choose the right one to upload documents to. Provide a little bit of clarity around upload versus submit. And also really wanted to work with the EWs to uncover any other barriers to locating documents on their end, including maybe some refined training and guidance for maybe compressing documents if possible, or ways to look at increasing the allowable size of the images. Go ahead. The next one is looking at improving the application and renewal flow. This would be to explore options to make specifically the Medi-Cal application and renewal process a little bit more user-friendly, considering asking only program-relevant questions, using dynamic functionality to allow the application or renewal to be more intuitive as they're completing it. The next one would be for language access, to look at ways to improve our non-English speaking customers, their ability to add notes, respond to items in Benefits Cal, explore ways to possibly type in their own language. And if that's not possible, then taking more like a PDF snapshot of what they type and sending that to a worker like they'd get a paper application. So really looking at ways to help those customers, be able to communicate in their own language. Part of this idea would be the possibility of advising users using a browser translation to switch to the language toggle option so that their translations will be more accurate. Okay, the last two, go ahead, please. Account creation and login. This would be looking at ways to improve the login experience for customers. We know we have MFA, but looking at that to see if we could provide other options, like maybe they can have a phone call with their MFA code, or reducing the times that they have to repeatedly use that MFA while still working within security guidelines. Also looking to add audio translations to videos, the possibility of adding an application number to be used to set up an account, where it would update automatically when a case number is created. And then the last one, driving customer action. This would be looking at ways to enhance the dashboard that's in Benefits Cal for the customer, really highlighting upcoming deadlines, required actions they need to take, more enhanced document upload status in real time, and looking at ways to integrate FAQs and other features. This is possibility of this one to be kind of worked into that first one we talked about, the customer change reporting assistant, to see if we can take some of the best ideas of both of those and work them together. Excuse me, go ahead. So the next steps for the initiatives, we are currently working on building a new project type in JIRA so that we can log not only the initiative, but then tie any resulting SERs to that initiative as they go forward for tracking so that we can report out. There'll be a space for tying them to the strategic goals. So we're working on that currently. That should be wrapped up hopefully within the next couple of weeks so that we can then move probably the first two of these items into the research phase of UCD to really look at what that scope would be, what would it take to make those things work. So we're targeting May to initiate that UCD process. Once that's been moved forward, now the Benefits Cal team can take those and whatever results from them, work them into the roadmap. We know we've got a lot going on right now, especially with other things coming from HR1. So we have to see where all of those fit in the other roadmap. We will provide updates at the quarterly stakeholder meetings and have a checkpoint in June, which feels like it's tomorrow. So that's where we are at with our initiative requests. The group did a great job. I'm really excited to see what comes out of all of their creativity.
Yeah, and then just to for those who haven't been tracking, I know we've been kind of coming in and out of the JPA and the PSC with this new process. How we got here. And I don't know if Jen Tracy is on the line, but 2 years ago, when I came to CalSAWS, we met with the advocates, and there was a lot of frustration. Oh, I see. Well, that's creepy. Thumbs up. We met with the advocates, and one of the frustrations was, how things get into the queue for Benefits Cal, how we make decisions, and there was a lack of transparency from their perspective. So, one of the things that, I proposed is like, what if we get all the stakeholders in the room? And we coordinated with CWDA, DHCS, CDSS, with CalSAWS facilitating it, SCIU as well. And mapped out this whole process, the matrix in terms of how we score them. So we really wanted more transparency, but we also wanted to focus on it being more strategic initiative so that they could have the most impact rather than these kind of one-off whack-a-mole type of things. And so, with Ashley's, leadership, the advisory group with, we got Marla and Kristen, who are also a part of that advisory group, came together in January for the first time. And I think it was a really great meeting. And we're moving forward with it, so I just wanted to, thank Ashley and everyone who's been a part of that process and, just being willing to experiment and try something different. And I think we're going to see a lot of success coming out of it. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mike.
I like that I saw a number of initiatives related to imaging and uploads because that's been a challenge over the years and we really have areas of improvement we can make there. And also on the account creation process. So I'm really curious to see how the UCD is going to be employed in that because I think that's going to be critical. That we're really looking at it, truly through a user's lens on how we go and design something, especially at this stage, that it does have the intended improvements. Any other comments or questions from our board member state partners, Marla?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. Thank you. Just want to thank you, Ashley, for facilitating such a great process through this whole thing. You did talk about that one meeting we had the month before then. You facilitated a process where every group gave input. We all had a chance to review everybody's proposals. There were many proposals, and these are the ones that came to the top. And I want to thank our advocate partners who participated and our state partners who participated. I think it was an all-day meeting conversation, and I think you had set up a great process for us to get through them, to vote on them, to get feedback on them. So I too am really looking forward to seeing these all implemented. And thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Julia, for doing a good process here.
Yes.
So I agree. I think this is fantastic work. I can see a huge improvements coming for our clients and our communities as they're working to navigate the system. So I appreciate that. I know there's a lot of work in prioritizing these. I have a couple of questions as I'm getting back into the things and up to speed as well. So one of the questions I was asking is, are these 8 going to occur simultaneously or are they in the order that they're set for prioritization? So the number.
They are.
They're prioritized.
Okay,
They are
so number one's the customer nudge, whereas the customer account login and stuff is more down around 7 and 8. Okay. And then the other question I have about it is, are they going to roll out as they are available with changes, system changes, or are they all going to roll out as one system change? Because I understand that you don't want to do the whack-a-mole, but
Yeah.
I also know that, some of these are very important, like language access.
Yes.
And how we serve our communities. And the sooner we can get that information and have those supports available, I think it's critical.
Yeah, I think with all things, we look at it as Ashley used the, right term roadmap. So with each of those initiatives, it'll be spread out over multiple releases over time. And so it's not going to be number one is like big bang and like all of a sudden, like everything in initiative 1 is going to be rolled out. They'll be kind of rolling in parallel in different work streams. And so, yeah, they'll definitely be implemented as they become available. Does that answer your question, Becky?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah, and one other thing, I'd like us to try to come up with some success factors. What are we looking to see as when these are implemented, making a difference? And can we see them in the data somewhere that they're actually helping? Like particularly ones where we're talking about assistance with doc uploads, assistance with application creations. I'm sure there's system data we would look at and say these things are indicators that we're getting better at this or it's becoming easier to use. I'd like you guys to kind of identify that and reward it. Other comments, questions from our board member state partners?
I think to that point, Michael, we do get sorry, Kristen, let me do this real quick and then pass it over to you. Just to that point there, about the metrics, I mean, these would be some good metrics to add to our metrics report, so we can just see on a regular basis.
Yeah, not just technical, but.
Yeah, not just like one report, but just a regular.
Motion with us. Kristen, was that you coming off mic?
It was, sorry, I'm more familiar with Teams, so I couldn't find the raise hand on Zoom, but I found it. I just wanted to kind of echo something, Michael, you said about the UCD process and the importance. And then take it a little bit further too. A lot of these recommendations came from the EW team members from throughout our county departments who were sharing with us what they hear from customers and then what they experience. So obviously the heavy lifting on the UCD process is going to come from the customer perspective. But I do want to make sure we don't lose sight of having a UCD process that involves the team members who receive the documents on the other side, just to kind of make sure we're fully holistically looking at the process.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Kristen. That's an excellent point. It's something we've brought up before in prior meetings about really needing to, when we do design, look at the front end creation and also the fulfillment back end and make sure that the whole experience is going to impact the customer. So if it's easy for them to drop in the request, but it's not easy to fulfill, it's not really achieving what was the intention of it. So to Kristen's point, really looking at it holistically across front end, back end.
A lot of them actually had that built into the idea, right? Was really getting, really getting the workers' input as well to have that whole end-to-end piece.
Other comments or questions from our board member state partners? Any public comment? Okay, thank you very much for that presentation.
Someone put public comment in the chat. They recently applied for this, may have a question.
That's her hand up.
Want me to read it?
Okay, well, no, it's in record already in the chat. We'll go ahead and respond off because it's not actually topical to what we're talking about. It looks like they're asking about some assistance on on the application process. So we'll take that back to the team and respond. Thank you. I think that was Jack.
Hi, thanks. Is it, can I? This
Oh,
is
Jen, I see your hand now. Thank you. Jen.
Okay, yeah. Thanks. Just one quick comment and a couple of questions. Just wanted to affirm this was a really great process. I think I commented last meeting as well. So just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you for the time that the team took to put the process together. And I think it went really well. Also excited to have data to measure success and including eligibility workers for the end-to-end process design. And then I just wanted to get a clarification if possible about the order of priority. Is it like the first thing starts and then once that's kind of going, we start the second thing, or do they all start at once? I'm not sure I think I got a little confused about part of that conversation.
I think the prioritization was set in terms of if they were in serial form, how they come together. They might actually have some that are parallel deployed, but they're not all going to be parallel deployed and they're not all going to be in serial fashion. So the order is just set up in case they were set up in the serial way. So there is a prioritization, Jen, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they all go at once or all wait 1 month at a time to be deployed.
Oh, I meant designed, but okay, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the prioritization from my perspective, when we make priorities like this, when we're at a point where we have to make a choice, we can fall back on that priority list, right? But sometimes we can move more than one thing at once and then we'll do that.
All right. Then thank you very much for the public comments. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item. I believe that's data and analytics update. Everybody's favorite. And you're good.
All right. Good afternoon. Rajesh Tahliani, CalSOS PM. So we officially kicked off the analytics project at the beginning of the month. The detailed planning is underway. Would like to share some initial thoughts from our, the detailed planning. We basically have organized our scope into 4 functional areas. And I think the way we are thinking is, case characteristics, where we'll have a lot of like demographics and other related information, eligibility, continuing eligibility, intake or application, and then productivity. So what we are doing right now is for each of those buckets, kind of compile a list of reports and the dashboards we need to produce. So that process is right now underway. In parallel, we are also looking at, what I call is the usability aspect of we have heard in various conversations with counties that some executives like, the reports in their inbox. So we are exploring, what reports would need that mechanism and how do we do that from a security point of view. Various, dashboards with the drill down capabilities. So we are exploring that from a UI point of view. Besides, the standard reports which we are committed to delivering, the other aspect we are looking is build a set of products. And again, this is a new concept, which is like if the county wishes to build a new report on their own, they can then use a set of products to build that report and save in their space. And if another county wants to take that and modify, they'll have an opportunity to take that and modify and then save in their own space. So again, that's the flexibility right now we don't have. And that's what we are exploring on that front. So I'll pause here for a second. And of course, the ad hoc reporting capability and the what we call is the AI enabled Genie, meaning if I have a report and someone wants to ask a question, if it is an, let's say an application pending report, how many applications were received yesterday, without like querying or running a SQL, by simply asking that question, you'll have an answer. So we are looking at all those options right now and doing POCs. So I'll pause here for a second before I go to the next slide if there are any questions here.
I have a question, Ethan from South Region 2.
Yeah.
What level of staff are working on the reporting? So the way I understand it in my county, like I have lower level staff who are weighing in on what the reports look like.
Right.
But I, as the director, have a very different set of needs
Yeah.
than what an eligibility worker or specialist may need.
Right.
So who and where does that happen, or where does could that happen?
Yeah, so we do have an analytics work group, but I would say I think that component is missing. As you pointed out, reports are needed at different level. A staff may look at report to an operational report to say, what do I really need to do today or this week, right? Mid-level management, manager or supervisor would say, let me look at what staff are allocated to me or what region I'm responsible and how it is progressing. That's a different view of the report. And then, of course, as you pointed out, at an executive level, you are looking at more metrics, productivity. I honestly don't know if we do have an analytics work group. I don't know if we have the right representation in all those three buckets at least. So I think we want to think about how do we structure that. But that's the key here. I think we can build solutions very easily, but the aspect which is really important is getting those upfront requirements, really well. And often I think that lens is missed. We have folks who are looking this from one persona or one angle. So I just want to make sure that we do have, and right now, I don't know if our work group is set up that way.
I would like to challenge the project to do that, to basically invest in both our hierarchy and also in our specialty. So all of us have a hierarchy.
Yep.
And the hierarchy is a little more obvious. It's different in different counties, but it's still there.
Yeah.
In terms of visibility. It's fairly easy to figure out what that is, but you probably still want representatives at different levels on what they're looking at. The other part is from speciality. So we have program individuals might be looking at different ways to look at the data than maybe some of our line staff need to look at it, because they're going to look at it from an operational lens and look at it from a processing lens. And the program might be actually looking at it from an efficacy standpoint. So I want to make sure that they're getting ready.
So
Just one additional comment in line with both of those. It is, while I understand the whole ask of the project setting up some form of structure that supports the different levels of oversight and need here, that maybe there's a regional approach that can happen where executive leadership, where we as regions appoint executive leadership from our teams to say these are the people that are going to represent that perspective on behalf of our region. So maybe that's the thought process we can approach on that lens too.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I think that in CalSALS, the way we work right now is committees are there.
Right.
And sort of counties send people to committees, but I think this full report thing is so critical that I think, maybe even the board needs to see the list of who's representing. And it's like a grid, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to have different levels of meetings to get all these levels, and maybe we should see it and see who's representing to make sure. Because I think it's hard for all of you when you give us a product and we're like, the wrong people were there and we're already done. So thank you.
Yep. So we will take that as an action item. And I'm hoping when we come in the next board meeting, we'll actually present the structure and who's participating and what sort of approach we'll have that next level meeting.
And before then, I'm guessing then we should expect an outreach of asking on behalf of the regions, who do you want to participate?
Yes, absolutely.
You guys be working within the project to try to do this out. We got the channels to get that thing into us. Okay. Thank you all for that.
Let's go to the next slide.
Good time to pause.
I figured there will be questions, so that's how I paused.
I would have been.
I have
I'm
my
getting
hand
better
up
at reading the
whenever.
room now.
I have my hand up whenever it's a good time.
Hey, Chris.
Oh, Kristen, you had your hand up too. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Call it.
Going back to this, I like everything I see here. I like the direction we're going. And I want to lift up one thing that's going to be incredibly important in this process is making sure we all have a clear understanding on the definition for the methodology that feeds these reports. I spent a lot of time in the reports given my role in our department. And there have been times where I think one report based off of the title says and means this thing, and there's a little nuance, and I'm like, that's not actually giving me the description.
Yeah.
That's not actually giving me the data that I really think. And then we go back, and I'm not knocking it, but the report is working as designed. But you have to kind of like really mine through the design document to understand what data it's pulling. So that whole concept of taking a detailed amount of time to make sure, especially for the ones that we all use on a regular basis, when it comes to productivity and accuracy types of measures, I think that we collectively all have to be on the exact same page of the definitions of what's behind, what data is being pulled, so that it's answering the correct questions that we all tend to get asked on a very regular basis.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a great one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we feel the pain of that too, as we've had different systems, pulling CalSAUS data. One of the biggest goals that we've talked about even during the regional meetings is a data dictionary, so that everybody has a unified, consistent understanding of what each data element actually means, so that as we pull reports, we have a consistent outcome of those and no one's guessing. So Kristen, 100%, we agree.
Yep. Yeah, and I was thinking of this a little bit complementary to that. In fact, the data dictionaries get created by the tech folks. And this is sort of the business vernacular complement to the data dictionary of what does it really mean in a business sense. So that's something that doesn't always get developed. And so it leaves a gap.
Yeah, I think all good points. At least my initial thought process to that is, as we publish the initial set of reports, we'll also publish the definitions. What does this mean? Where are we pulling from? And like simple English, from a screen point of view, and not per se like, database column or table. We'll obviously have that information for, a data analyst or SQL folks, but we'll also publish, the more, business friendly terms.
Yeah. And I think to Kristen's point is, what we're referring to in terms of processing. Those kind of things have to be defined, and that's not singular data element. That's an outcome.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying it's actually a little bit more than a data dictionary. It's coming up with the outcomes that we're producing on these that are not singular data.
I got it. Yeah.
They're calculated or derived. They haven't, and that means it needs to be defined. I think that's actually what the folks that were speaking on this are referring to.
Yeah, it's like the UCD process, but for us to make sure that the business side of the house, those of us who are monitoring the day-to-day work in our various offices, are kind of working through scenarios of, okay, so we're trying to answer said question. These are the types of things, and then kind of working on with the individuals who have more knowledge on the technical side to be able to make sure we're in sync. Because what I want to try to prevent is and we're at the end, here's a data dictionary of all of the things that it says that feed into these reports. And we're like, but that doesn't really line up with what we actually need. So I'm just saying, taking time to be very mindful and methodical in the development process of what data is being pulled, what methodology is feeding these reports is what I'm just trying to elevate.
It helps us trust the data that's coming out if we know what's being asked.
Yeah, absolutely. Then it's a lot less back and forth of, oh no, that didn't mean that. I think Ryan had his hand up, our partner up there at CDSS.
Yeah, thanks. So a little bit of a related topic. First of all, this is great. I'm glad that there's this effort underway to make the data within CalSAUS more accessible and available and useful to all y'all. I do think we also will need to think about, are there certain types of questions that you all are thinking about on a day-to-day basis that are questions that the state is also trying to answer? Because I think there are some situations where we could imagine there are numbers that we are already pulling for our regular operations, forecasting for budget, things like that we just want to make sure you would be pulling them consistently in the same way too. So we actually have done a lot of thinking in particular around things like how to calculate the ABOD group, right? That just want to make sure there's a good line of communication between us and you all as you start to develop these reports so that we can be consistent over time. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that furthers that point of really defining what it means, especially on derived terms. Any other comments or questions from our state partners on this?
There's one more slide though.
You can see it.
Yes. So, as we shared in the last meeting, we had a 22-month timeline, and phase one was 12 months. So now we have attempted to take that phase one 12 months and drill down further. And this is still, we are fleshing out the details, so we may shuffle a few things here. But again, the idea here is, we want to do this incremental delivery. As we are putting together this slide, then last few days, I was thinking, I think we are going to shuffle the order. So we'll start with intake first, then do the continuing eligibility, then case characteristics, and then finally we'll do the productivity. So, there's a little nuance here. Next time when I come back, I'll change the slide slightly. But the whole idea here is as early as, sometimes mid-April, we'll come back with a set of intake reports to say, these are the reports we are thinking, these are the dashboards we are thinking, and, point taken from Kristen, and we'll try to articulate, and again, we'll work with the work group. But the idea here is we will do that incremental delivery, like design, we'll publish, we'll get the feedback, then we will build the product, and we will release that for, county validation. We'll gather the feedback. So the whole idea is, we'll build iterative, and at a minimum, counties will get to see the report or dashboard 3 times before it goes to production. So that's the concept we are kind of deploying. In parallel, we have, from a software readiness, we have to do system validation, make sure the counts are accurate, do some parallel testing, meaning if I already have a report and now I'm building a new report on this new platform, compare the counts. We are not expecting counties to do some of that testing. We will do that. But that all will happen behind the scenes. There's performance, SLS. We got to make sure we do performance testing. And throughout this period, we plan to have the county engagement on a regular basis. And before we go live, the idea is the last 2 months, we will do one final round of validation before we put this out in production. We are still kind of finalizing the further details on this front, but I'll pause here and see if this is in line with the expectations of everyone.
Well, I know we've been challenging you guys to bring the timeline in.
Yeah.
So, that's still that's kind of a evergreen for me. It's gonna always be, can you make it less?
That's too long. That's what I would say. That's too long. So my thought is,
It looks like it's out.
can you do a model where you're like the number one there? What you want to start like with intake, do the intake piece and then release the intake reports. And from my perspective, you're going to need to release reports every month or two till the end of time, till the end of CalSOS, right? Because we're always needing new reports, we're always needing revised reports. For me, it's not a one-time kind of thing.
Right.
I think it'd be more helpful if you were releasing as you went, because if you release one set of reports, we'll learn a lot.
Okay.
Instead of waiting till the very end and then kind of, yes, too much of it.
Yeah, the other thing is that we're partners in this, and we do have our data experts. And if there's ways for us to be more interactive in this, that would actually help with the timeline.
Yeah.
I don't want that to be set aside. Let's make the ask, and let's figure out how to resource it so that we can actually bring the timeline in. We really want to benefit from having this kind of data capabilities available to our staff. Yeah. So we're motivated to be part of it.
Let me take that as an action item. I think the biggest challenge is going to be making sure we are all on the same page in terms of this is what we are building, this is the definition. Once we get that, I think building products is, to me, it's not complicated. I think the concern I have on committing an early timeline is we have 400 plus reports. I don't know how much time it will take for review, iterations, approval cycles. If we can expedite that, there is a possibility that, yes, as soon as, as Marla suggested, the first module is done, can we put that out for production? Let me take that as an action item.
And I think that's also why you get, let's see who's working with you on this, because that's the other thing. If we've made sure we've assigned the right people to be working with you, it will be efficient and quick, right? We know what reports we need. I mean, I don't think this doesn't need to take a ton of time. We know what we need.
Ryan's had his hand up for a while, so I want to.
No, sorry, just a second. But the other thing we can think about, again, the state has been doing a lot of analyses at the statewide level that sort of by necessity requires pulling together an analytic file that might have a lot of different use cases. if there were, depending on what your list of reports are, there might be a way where we could take some of the work that we have already done and give it back to you all to then use at the county level for your own specific views, that might be able to knock some of the more, general use case things off that list, sort of as quickly as you can get the environment stood up. So happy to talk about that more too.
So Ryan, can I ask you a question? What I'm hearing you say, Ryan, is that CDSS has been getting reports, or the state's been getting reports from CalSAWS that the counties haven't been getting. Am I understanding this correctly?
I would describe it a little bit differently in that we have been creating a data set that we can use for general purpose. And so we do our own analytics on data at a statewide level.
Sure. This is hard for me to hear because we operationalize and implement. And when the state has data that we don't have access to and we're the ones that are implementing, that puts us in a really bad position when the state has information that we don't have access to.
Can I just correct? He's not saying you have information that they have information you don't. They extract data and they do their own reports, the CalSAWS team at the state level. So that's what he's saying. That it's the same data. It's just how they curate that data at the state level is different than at the county level. He was offering to say could that support, can that be leveraged for this effort? Yeah. There's no data that the state has that the counties don't have. I just want to make that.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've processed the raw data is maybe the way to put it.
So basically it would be as if CDSS had a golden data set and they were running all of their own stuff, where their numbers, and I'll use ABOD, may be very different than what we see as ABOD because of how we immerse it. Right?
Can you say that even? I'm sorry.
So what I'm hearing is that CDSS, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding it right. This isn't an attack or anything. I just want to make sure I'm getting it. Is CDSS is getting a data set where they are running their own analytics and information based on how they're interpreting what they're seeing, where the counties are doing the same thing, which means we may not have the same ABOD number. So the state may be saying, oh, Sacramento County, you only have 30,000 ABODs. We're pulling the data because we operationalize and do the job. And I'm like, I got 55,000. Where's that number coming from? Well, you got it from the state. Well, how come we can't believe you? So I don't want to say I'm fearful that so many people have access to data and we're seeing it all over the places that we're all challenging to a right number. And we're all being pitted against each other because we're all reinterpreting a data set. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's the lack of standardized reporting. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think this meeting isn't the first time it's come up this week alone, right? CWDA meetings, we've had this conversation. And I co-chair self-sufficiency, and this is one of the things that we discussed is, how do we get to how is the state getting to numbers? And this is no dig on the state at all. It's really just the reality of counties can't speak to how anyone else is inferring or aggregating the data if we don't know how that's occurring, and there's no universal set of data yet at the county level. It's a lot of data points that we have to aggregate together instead of being a standardized report that everyone's starting with, and then we can explain how we further aggregate as needed according to the county level. But I think that's been the point of contention over this last, since HR 1 came into play, primarily of can we start somewhere with a standardized report, which is not just hand us a bunch of aggregate points of data that we need to pull together and create ourselves.
Just to be clear, we'd be more than happy to share the code that we've been using to calculate any of these numbers. Presumably you should be able to pull them yourselves, or we can talk about if there's some flavor of the analytic file that we've created that would be that we could make accessible to you all to get your county specific information. We could definitely talk about that too.
So Ryan, thank you. I appreciate the partnership. So as we move forward and develop these,
we will definitely, absolutely. Oh, yeah, 100%.
The time frame, again, back to shorten this time frame and getting to accurate data that everybody is working from the same numbers. That's our goal. Okay. So is there another slide?
That's it.
All right. Any other comments or questions from our board members, state partners? That was a robust conversation. Very needed. Any public comment? Okay, we'll move on to our next item. That's identity access management. Less exciting, but definitely impactful to the project. And Dawn's going to talk about that.
So Robert's gonna
I'll kick it off. Robert Lush, Chief Information Officer. As part of our continued focus on transparency, I want to bring you up to speed on two.
Robert's on mute for me.
Kristen, he's on mute for me as well. I don't
Yes.
know if folks in the room can hear us.
Okay. I was like, oh God, maybe it was me.
Michael, we can't hear you as well. We got Michael muted and okay, they're working on it.
Okay, we will be getting audio back shortly. Kristen, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay.
You got it.
We lost the room. So right now we're trying to get that working. So just be patient, guys. We'll be right back with this.
Okay.
Hey, can you guys hear us on the phone now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're back. Robert.
Sorry about that.
We'll kick it back off. So as we talked about the identity and access management, again, this is what verifies who people are as well as what data and or applications they should have access to. We're going to be kicking this off this month with the intent of rolling this and completing it over the next 12 months. I'm going to go through a very high level and we'll continue to report on this at both the JPA and PSC going forward because of the importance of this. But we have dedicated staff to working on this and we are excited to be able to kick it off. We cannot promise the goal is seamless as possible, but this is really the core functionality for everything. And so transparency is the most important thing as we go forward on this. Next slide. So just talking about a high level of what we're doing and why from a timeline standpoint. Right now, we're really in the mobilization or discovery phase of what we want to be able to put together. Then we're going to be moving into the architecture, developing a communication plan, and then actually communicating it out. While it says pilot, that's not really what it is. What we're going to be doing is testing the first application work streams on applications that only affect internal to CalSOS. Once we've validated that those go through the whole process, then we'll be rolling out one work stream at a time in waves to all of the counties and communicating throughout that process. And that's really the high level from an IAM standpoint. Again, we're just in the beginning phases of this, which is what we're talking about. So is there any questions before I go on to the next project?
Yeah, this and the next one are both infrastructure updates to keep us aware of. I'm highly nervous about both of them, especially this one. So I really want to know that you guys are keeping an eye on what's changing, what's discretionary, trying not to actually add to our risk profile as we make a major transition like this.
The absolute focus is on the risk mitigation for this and tracking all the changes that we're doing. Yes.
I'm not intimately familiar with Okta versus paying identity and whether or not there's a new Okta feature and then we're going to enable it as part of this transition and that's what blows us up. So are you guys lining these out to
and right now the intent is not net new functionality without advanced testing. It's transition in place, make sure we validate and confirm our current functionality, and then we can look at what we're going to do next. It's not about additional features in and of itself. Right now, it's about risk mitigation and making sure things work. It's transparent and seamless as possible.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from board members, state partners on this highly technical presentation?
I have a follow-up to that. You know, when we went live to CalSAS, just in general, we had one thing we looked at every month as the JPA was kind of a risk assessment and where we were with each of those risks. So it might be helpful here because this is so important to just identify the risks for us and then just report out every month.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was kind of a red light, green light thing, and those things work well for us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions from board members, state partners? Hearing none, any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the next item, which is the Oracle item.
The next infrastructure item that we're working on, and this one should be as transparent as possible as well, is we are transitioning how we're utilizing, or really where we're utilizing our core database. Instead of being inside AWS, we're now in Oracle hardware that's still inside of the AWS data centers. And what this does is this helps us improve performance, increase capacity, but also helps us with cost mitigation going forward as we continue to scale. And we have just started this off, actually the last couple of months. I'll turn over to Dawn and we'll walk through kind of the details of where we are and the next steps going forward.
If we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the timeline. So we actually started all the planning last year on this particular item because this is a very core central heart of CalSAS, if you will. So we spent a great deal of time understanding this particular offering and in a multitude of meetings with both Oracle and AWS, because this is a joint partnering offering that they provide. Knowing that we had some pending potential capacity items coming our way, this definitely, after a long session of review, was the best answer in terms of addressing those items. Right now, as you can see, we are in environment stand-up. So we are standing up servers in different availability zones as well as in our DR, so that we make sure we maintain all of the infrastructure and availability that we have today. Once we complete all of that, which is due to end in right around June of this year, we will go into a more readiness phase in the non-production environment. So we will actually start to use these environments in the way they're intended, but in a non-production fashion. And I have another slide to kind of talk about that in just a second. And then we go into production readiness. Go live is currently anticipated for the August release. So that would be the first time you would see it in production, while we will have been using it throughout the release cycle prior to that. And then, of course, we will ultimately decommission some environments inside of AWS. If we go to the next slide, though, I want to talk a little bit about the testing that's going on, because that's really sort of the key to minimizing the risk, right? So we have some testing going on that is directly about this project, the actual Oracle stand-up itself. We have already done one round of this. We are doing performance testing, full batch testing, regression testing, and we are testing operational procedures as well. So like disaster recovery and is our encryption and masking going at the pace we need it to keep things flowing through the environments. So we have basically a suite of 4 different kinds of tests here that are being run as we go through the process. And if you go to the next slide, if you keep that idea of those 4 types of tests in mind, here's when we're running them. So we have already run that suite of 4 tests for the baseline. So we stood everything up and we just sort of said out of the box, what does it look like, right? We ran that full suite. Is it functioning? Do we have problems? Do we have speed areas? We completed that in February. So we did set our baseline metrics that we're comparing both the current performance against and how did we do coming out of the box. We are right now in a performance tuning area, and you can see on the bottom of this slide, there's also a network change that we're putting in based on the availability of a faster network solution that we'll be adding as well. But we have 2 more rounds of that testing occurring. After we performance tune, potentially that network change may get in there faster than we thought. So hopefully we'll actually have 2 rounds of testing on what we consider to be the complete solution, although we may make some adjustments after the second baseline testing, right? And then again, we do it again before we actually start to use it to be sure that we actually are going at the speed we need to. The expectation is we should be going faster, and we should have mitigated our capacity issues. So that's the intention. If you go to the last slide, this testing is not specific to this project. What we're doing here is after we do all that baseline testing I just talked about, where we're not actually using these yet, we're just testing them. Now we actually join the release cycle. So we will now then hook up the development environments to the new Exadata machines. Deloitte will start doing their thing, right? And hopefully they won't notice that we have them on the new database, right? And then the system testing environment will hook it up. And as that August release goes through, hopefully they don't notice. And so on and so forth. It'll go through standard performance testing on the August release, through staging. And then with the August release, we would actually hook you all up from a production perspective. So there's also connectivity testing and a series of other tests that'll be going on. But the idea here is we don't want you to notice, other than hopefully it goes a little faster. So that's the last slide. So back to you.
Thank you for that level of detail, Don. Appreciate it. And Robert, also about the context of moving from the databases being on an infrastructure that was AWS to actually this engineered system from Oracle, which is the top to bottom. So I'm familiar with that platform, and they have a certification process that Oracle has for anything that's put into that environment. And even if they're one version off and some other softwares that wouldn't be certified, are you guys including that kind of certification process as part of this?
We are. We're heavily working with them. We are going to come out of the box on a lower version than the current, because quite honestly, CalSAWS is not quite up to the current version. So we do have a migration to a new version, but it will come after this. So we're working with them on the fact that we will come up on the current version of CalSAWS, the current version of Oracle running in CalSAWS, because we don't want that many changes all at the same time.
Agree with that, but will that be in their certification version? Everything's okay there?
And then after August, we are heading into an Oracle migration. The Oracle migration won't be in place, as you know, because we're going at several versions. There will probably be some application changes in order to accommodate a higher version. And we're working with Deloitte to get that up and running so that they can functionally test.
And then my question to you guys is about support. So previously we had a support agreement and we were going to AWS when we had anything of issue in their infrastructure. This is still going to be in AWS from a hosting standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys doing about the finger pointing of this is not us, it's the backplane or the network that's in there called Amazon?
Yeah, so luckily it's fairly isolated in terms of who's doing what, so that helps. But secondly, I have, through the procurement process, gotten priority support through Oracle. So beyond what you've ever had before, we now basically have the bat phone directly to Oracle to be able to get them both on the line if we have to. But in all honesty, we do that today too. Something goes wrong in the Oracle database, we end up with both of them online. It's just we're going to get a faster speed of response now.
We've also mitigated some of the risk by setting up communication matrices on how we talk with them, both from an Oracle AWS standpoint, both to the highest levels of support, and then to the first comment of mitigating risk by separating the migration to this versus the Oracle upgrade later.
And the network thing made me kind of think a little bit about that and whether or not, you can get Oracle engineering engaged in certifying and making sure that's not going to be a problem, because that's an AWS upgrade.
Yeah, and actually the Oracle and AWS have formed a joint product team. So we do have direct access to that joint product team as well.
That's all I have. Any other questions or comments from our board members, state partners on this one? Hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, we will keep this closely in our eyes and on the agenda each time till we successfully make this transition. So that moves us on to our next item. That's workload management. And we're excited again about this because it's business oriented. And Who do we have presenting on this one? It's
Emily and Allison.
So we have a substitute, Jerry Nielsen, the applicant.
Oh, yeah, you.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, downgrade from the original person. I'll do my best here. So workload management redesign. Taking a quick look at the timeline here, this effort's been going on for a couple of years. So I want to recap kind of what we've been doing the last couple of years, so everybody kind of has the same understanding of where we're at, how we got there. So first, the objective of this was to enhance CalSAWS to assist staff with intake appointments, managing eligibility workers' schedule, scheduling the intake appointments, establishing worker availabilities in the system, and then being able to track intake appointments through the process. So simplifying that, make it more usable. What we've done so far is go through a couple different steps here. First is the research and analysis, which involved 44 counties across the 6 regions, multiple session, 4-hour regional work groups, a half a dozen of those. We recruited participants for the ongoing work group that worked through the design, the research analysis piece, and also into the actual system design, functional design piece that we recently completed at the end of last year. In addition to this, we had also gone out to 7 different counties across the region, and they're listed here, to go in, have detailed discussions and see how workers are actually using the system, you know, and what, because sometimes it's very different on what you're told they're using it versus do you observe them, what's actually happening. So with all those inputs in the research analysis, then we came up with this set of requirements on this. Now, one activity that you guys may have remembered was going on at the same time was a vendor transition at the same time. So then this research and analysis was handed over to the Deloitte team, the new vendor, to take it forward with the design and begin the implementation. So at the end of last year, we went through several months of the design process to go and spec out the functional design, the technical elements, how many changes are going to be in here, develop a OCM plan, some detailed training. How are we going to communicate these changes out to the counties? And so that process was completed at the end of last year, very beginning of this year. And we have been working on implementing, so coding it, and then we'll be very shortly going into the testing phase. And then some of the initial OCM components, demonstrations across regions to various staff levels, kind of targeted at different kind of staff, because how it impacts staff is different. A manager is going to be different than somebody who is taking that intake appointment, for instance. So we'll be going through all that prior to the May release, where the first phase of this, which is the workload management redesign, goes into the system. The next piece on this, which we're not covering in as much detail in this meeting, is the caseload management redesign, which is the part 2 of the overall workload management redesign effort. So before we go to the next page, I'll take a pause and see if there's any question.
I have a question on workload management and a little bit of, anyway. So Sacramento County, we have 525,000 Medi-Cal cases, and I believe that we have to separate them into some god-awful number of 55 different caseloads. Is there any design in this to be able to put a banked caseload into a single bank caseload? Because when you're working with 55 different banks, documents are getting missed or not making it to where they're supposed to be. It is just an absolute nightmare working with 55 different invisible worker codes to be able to manage. I can't even imagine what it looks like for a county. I say 525, they're like, that was lunch. It just doesn't seem realistic or manageable.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, is there a limitation on banks? Because I know we actually aggregate at any level.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was going to say is I don't think there's a limitation on that, and you can. It depends on how you want to aggregate it. I can come back with some of the more specified details on how it's changing, but I know we're making that more usable, so it's not as unwieldy as you're just describing it. I don't have the details at my fingertips.
Yeah, any kind of structural limitations like that, we should really try to pursue alternative
Correct.
I think it's to deal with their volume and the way we're set up.
Yeah, I think it was something, you can't have more than 10,000 cases in an individual worker code, and that just, when I have to have 60 worker codes for Medi-Cal pending or Medi-Cal continuing, that just doesn't, it doesn't seem functional.
That sounds. I'll take that back and get back to it. It sounds to me like maybe something related to the performance, because I don't think there's a physical limitation of that. But it may have been too much of a performance thing to bring those all back at once, maybe. But let me take a look at it.
Yeah, I think the takeaway is that we may want to structure our aggregation at various levels, and we need to have the system be able to perform regardless of how we do that. Because we might want for the unit, you might want to share across units. Or leave them at individual if you're small enough that you can do that.
I had a question for Dawn that I missed, and you guys don't. I haven't been involved in like service center metrics for a minute. How far out are we as counties through AWS on getting real-time call center metrics? So if I wanted to post something on my I'll use a front page website first, where people are calling in, they could see, oh, there's an average wait time of about 3 hours here. Maybe I don't want to call at 5 o'clock. I may want to call at 7. Like, how far out are we from being able to get those types of real-time metrics and not just a report that's either daily or monthly or however it's pulled that says, yeah, today your average wait time was 1 hour and 45 minutes and your abandon rate was 37%. Like, how far out are we on real time versus static?
So we actually can see that. So I will take that back as an action item to look at what it would take to expose it.
I have a question on this one here. Is this workload management? I can't tell if this is just intake appointments or all workload management.
So the overall effort is going to be all workload management. The first phase of this is focused on the appointments piece and the intake. Yes, exactly. The second will be the ongoing caseload management, which would be the continuing one.
Is that where renewals and everything falls in?
Yes. That will fall.
Next biggest thing.
Exactly. So that'll be the part 2, which is scheduled in 2609. So it's part of the redesign.
And then just general task management, address change.
Yeah, so the general, these 2 pieces here did not include the task management piece, but there is another effort going on for the tax management piece as
So
well.
tasks are behind this, but it's not actually
Being
used, referring to tasks themselves in the content.
correct. These are more of the think of it as the appointments, case assignments, reassignments, redeterminations, power licensing, those different types of appointments.
So that comes into play when you have caseloads that you're managing, which we do have caseloads for some of our intake, our CalWorks intake, but for the most part, we are task-based. That's why I'm asking about task here.
So can I ask you guys a favor on this? This, I think, needs a little bit more engagement because it's so important to the counties on driving our business. Is this something you guys could set up on a regional level to have regional this and get into the weeds and for us to tease it out a bit? I know my counterpart, Kristen, probably wants to review this quite a bit. Heavily invested in this.
This is, Michael, already, we have this as a standing item on the new quarterly executive briefings that we're doing in each of the regions. So absolutely, we're going to get in and dive into exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I was just meaning for a very focused approach instead of squeezing it into our normal regional meeting.
No,
like an hour update to actually spend the full time item. As a separate.
It was deep as ever.
Like a separate regional meeting, not.
I'll just give an example of why that ask is completely valid, and maybe this only applies to Region 4. But Region 4 meetings always get set on Tuesdays. Those are board.
Yeah.
You're never going to get executive leadership at a regional manager meeting or a regional meeting on a Tuesday. So I kind of gave that feedback yesterday because of the additional asks that went out for meetings. And Chris gave the same feedback. And so like that's, I think, also the driver for not only is there, going back to the earlier conversation around there's a worker lens here, the people that are participating in the work groups, and then there's a different executive lens that needs to be present and maybe the conversations aren't all in the same bucket, because we're looking at cost, impact, all of those higher level things, and they have no clue, and nor should they. Not that it's hidden, but that's not their scope of work.
Yeah.
So I think that's for me is kind of the overarching ask of why all of these things align in that vein, of, you know, we're having these conversations in a lot of areas, and whatever happens with casework, again, going back to, like, you know, we have to also be cognizant of what are our staff deciding that can impact our union agreements. Like, there's just a lot of nuance. So going back to that can we have a place for a deeper dive as needed on multiple things that come up? I think I lean back into, I think, some kind of sub-work group associated to more executive leadership, I think would help with more time on some of these items, more deeper dive on some of the items, and allow some of our vendors to have a different space to talk through these in more detail and get some Q&A back in a different lens.
Yeah, and we have a regional structure. I just think we did leverage it more. And there are standing regional meetings, but those are usually summary oriented and focused on certain things. But to create additional regional meetings specific to certain topics like this, I think it makes a lot of sense. And this one has such an impact on county operations that we want to get it right. We don't want to have it just roll out in this big womp.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to I want to dig in a little bit deeper on this is I've been hearing about this workload management, and I'm like, that's fantastic, workload management. Now I'm hearing it's about intake appointments specifically. That's very different from workload management. Intake appointments are 12% of everything. We do case management, we do renewals, all that's way bigger than intakes, right? So if you're going to the level of our staff and saying to them, talk to us about intake workload management, they're just going to tell you about intake workload management. You got to get to a level where you say, we want to do workload management, and we can tell you that's not just intake appointments, that's all of our case management, right? So that's why I want to really make sure that you're getting the right people in the room when you're getting feedback from us. And I think this is sometimes why you say, well, we ask your staff more, and I'm like, that was the wrong staff to ask. So who you ask, I think there's something about coming to the JPA about who do you want us to talk to about each situation? Because if you just go to our line staff, we don't know you're doing that, and you're not getting the right kind of feedback. You're not getting the feedback that you need for the initiative itself.
Yeah, so we have a lot of interest in this.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that was the reason we wanted to have a conversation. As Michael, you said, we don't want to roll out this in May and then everyone realizes that this is difficult to use and, you know, it has challenges. That's not what we want to do. So the sooner we have those conversations and make sure everyone understands what we are doing, I think that would help. If you need to do any course correction, we have time to do it. Right?
We have a lot of expectation around this, so that's what I think needs to happen. So you guys work collectively with the project to make that happen for us. I think we can gather pretty well at a regional level, and we'll set it at whatever, executive representation won't be on a Tuesday. That affects all the vendors.
And then just looking at it high level from our lens, we're currently in budget season. And assessing for what staff we need to move this forward. I know a lot of county works on the programs disappeared, and we brought them back in house to our eligibility programs to help with the caseloads. But as we're projecting, going to our board, having budget meetings with our CEOs and our board members, we're having to plan now for June 1, ABOT, things of that nature, having to plan for January 1st. Because if we don't have the right staff and we're relying kind of on this workload management design, it's gonna, like Ethan was saying, it's gonna have our lunch. It's gonna be difficult for us to move forward. So this is very critical as not only we prepare for this fiscal year, but also as we prepare for the next fiscal year. And we haven't even started this fiscal year yet. So it is vital to our operations.
Absolutely. Anybody outside the room? I think we've got some good comments, not to block anybody, but anybody else in the room want to speak up, that's fine. But do we have anybody else from our board member, state partners who want to speak on this item? I don't see any hands yet. I see Kristen. I know, Kristen, this is one of your passion areas.
I'm saving my questions for the next slide.
Yeah, we do have one more slide.
Look forward to it.
Oh,
this was just a preview.
This is the preview.
Yeah, there's one more slide.
Start the conversation.
Yeah.
We're gonna move to the next slide, but Karen Rapinati has her hand up, so I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I
she's
just wanted to add that we do have OCM planned for various levels. So rather than doing groups of whoever at the time that we're doing our OCM, we are identifying it by like worker level, supervisor. There's various levels that we are working through on the OCM trainings that we'll be doing.
Thanks, Karen. I just see this as an opportunity to sort of increase the engagement level, and really take our regional thing out for a run. I think we can definitely do this a little bit more effectively. All right, Karen, I'm assuming your hand's going to go back down. Unless you have another question, we're going to go ahead and move to the next slide, and then I believe Kristen's going to come in on this one after you.
I'm James. All right. So a lot of information on this page. Some of it might be small depending on your resolution. I'll go over and first I'll start with the orientation of the slide here. So in the, really call it the table view here, there are 4 different columns here. The overall functional area, how we're categorizing it, a summary of what the changes are in there, in a few words, what the current state of the system is, how does this accomplished right now, and where we would go in the future state with what the redesign is doing. So for example, we can take the first one, the appointment management area functionality. The overall summary is we're streamlining the scheduling, improving the tracking of history on the appointments, and supporting a broader or putting in a broader support structure for reassigning appointments from one worker to another. Someone's out or someone has too many appointments. Somebody got done early, being able to shuffle those appointments in there. Currently, as you may see with that change summary, the current system doesn't really support that well and easily. There's a lot of friction in being able to do that. And so in the future state, what has been designed on this is to have more of a guided experience in being able to schedule and adjust the schedule, more dedicated reassignment of appointment schedules, taking into account workers' current schedule and availability. So that's an example of one area here. I could go through all of them. I don't know if you want me to drain every one of them, but this is the information that's in the deck and available to the board to review in detail. And there's more information that's even beyond this to go to the deeper dive of regional sessions that you brought up, Michael, that we can go into very, very detailed specifics on those and those as well.
Is it intake appointments only? Is that what we're talking about here? Or is it any kind of appointment?
It's good. It's almost all of the appointments, I would say. I think there's a few that are in phase 2, so I don't want to say everything.
And is it all for programs or simple programs?
Yes, all programs.
Okay, well, looking forward to that more detailed dive for sure. Kristen, did you want to say anything about this?
I have a question. Is this also the section where we'll be able to see, so this is managing at the forefront, how to drive work, how to prioritize, how to do all of those things. But what about the other side of the house? What people did, what their productivity was, how many customers they served, how many tasks they left open if they weren't able to close all of the tasks, like the productivity side of the house. Does that come into here, or is that more of the reports thing we talked about earlier?
It's Kristen and Rajesh can add some on this. That's going to be more in the operational reports area that we had talked about earlier, kind of looking at the outcomes on this. This is where within the system, taking the actions that make it changes, setting up schedules, setting up appointments. The reports will be the view and it's kind of seeing the performance aspect of it.
So I see these things as kind of going together.
Yeah.
So whether they're on different threads or not, they can't have major different timelines. So that we can roll this out, but we can't report on it for 4 months. So I would really like for you guys to take the reporting that's related to this and have that be part of the discussions, even though you're using a different team that might be working. Kristen, and you good on that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
And we'll have a more detailed dive where you and the team can dive into this. Any other comments or questions from our board member state partners on this item? Discussion, any public comment?
Hi, this is Jen. I remembered something we talked about a long time ago. Would this allow for customers to schedule their own appointments like how people can do with the DMV and a lot of other public service places?
Jen, thanks for the question. This does not cover customer self-scheduling.
That be as part of what's in the benefits Cal area corporation model? All right, then any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, and that's HR1 work groups update. We're excited about that. Let's see, Roger? Fred.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Roger Perez, CalSol's Policy Design. So the highlight for this month for the CalSol's core HR1 work groups is on the ABOT work group. So this group completed defining the requirements and prioritizing the CalSol system enhancements last month. In total, 6 enhancements were identified, which you see documented here on the slide. These enhancements were focused around strengthening eligibility validations, improving transparency of determinations, expanding exemption options, enhancing work requirement tracking, and then also supporting verification of work activities as well as exemptions. The project team has now grouped these enhancements into 2 SCRs for implementation. We have the first SCR that is targeted for release this summer, followed by the second SCR planned for the end of the year. And so moving forward, we'll be tracking these SCRs under the CalFresh system changes in progress section of the JPA deck. I'll pause here to see if there's any questions. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to Fred to cover the HR1 advocate work groups.
Good afternoon, everyone. Frederick Gaines, Benefits Cal Director. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. So we're going to the talking about the HR1 advocate work groups. We're going to first talk about the CalFresh processing work group. You'll see here in our timeline, we've had 3 meetings. Our next scheduled meeting is on the 19th of this month, where we will be bundling up and going through the last the requirements as they've been grouped together with our advocate partners as well as our state partners that are part of the work group. And then we will have them prioritize those requirements as they are bundled and then present those back to us. And then from there, those prioritized requirements will then make our way into our work stream. Go ahead to the next slide. So our ABOT work group, we completed 3 of our milestones, and then the next presentation we'll be presenting at an upcoming UCD meeting where we're presenting all of the requirements that came out of that work group. Some notable points from this work group: we had 33 total requirements. Of those 33, 9 of those requirements will be implemented with the April release, prepared for the June 1 effective date of the ABOT functionality. We'll talk about that a little bit more in another slide. And then there'll be 24 remaining requirements that will get prioritized and documented and worked into our normal work stream. The next slide. Our TRUV work group. We've had 2 meetings on the TRUV work group where we worked with the advocates to get requirements on what we would like to see, how we move the TRUV access tool, which is the income verification tool, into Benefits Cal so that customers can request their income through their employers and banking routing information. And then that one will also be bundled, and we'll be presenting that at the upcoming UCD meeting as well. And then moving on to the next slide, our last work group is the Medi-Cal work group. It has kicked off with its first meeting. We have our next meeting next week, and then that one will wrap up, and then we will have those requirements bundled and approved, and then we'll present them at a UCD meeting at a future date as well. And then the next slide This is where I mentioned that this is our SCRs, our CMSPMs that are coming out for our HR1 items. So we have two upcoming CalFresh items. One is the ABOD, which was going into is going into the production at the end of April to meet our June 1st ABOD timeline. And then we also have our True Income Employment SCR that will be going in the 2607 release. So in July, we'll have that one. And then we also have on the Medi-Cal side of the house, the listed items here that we have coming up in the rest of the year from 2606 all the way to the beginning of 2027 as we're preparing. And that was it.
Fred, I noticed on all of the advocate work groups, it doesn't list counties as a participant in that. I see CWDA there, but does that mean there's also county reps in addition to CWDA reps?
There are no county representations other than the CWDA reps. They are advocate communities and the state partners, CDS and DHCS and CWDA.
I don't know how that's possible when we're the governing body for this JPA. We don't have representation in something that important.
Make a change.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we planned this out, that wasn't the target audience. We have made a decision, and we've been talking to customer engagement that we will be presenting everything to the counties, as well as talking to them about any trainings that we would have or videos demos that we put out. We plan to show those to the counties as well. But when we created the work groups, no, they weren't part of the target audience at the time.
Well, that was a mistake. The counties are represented always. We've had to make that available or to bring it to your attention in the past when others and you guys have made those adjustments. This is the first time I've noticed that we're not actually involved and you're pretty far along. So you guys are going to have some kind of a course correction to get county representation in this so that we know what's coming. Bringing it back already baked is insufficient. So get back with your team and plan how to incorporate counties in this and make your solicitations using our regional representation. We need to be at the table.
Understood.
Any other comments?
Yeah, in addition to that, on slide 29, the ABOD, these releases for ABOD, they're all after the ABOD implementation date. So I'm having a hard time understanding how we can be implementing ABOD on June 1st when these releases that allow us to do the work are not scheduled until the winter.
Yeah, so Marla, great question. These are enhancements. These are not, tied to the policy. The policy is still targeted to go live in May for that June 1st effective date. These are enhancements to help support the workers through that ABOD implementation as those policy changes are made in the system. It's something that we can definitely take back to see if we can move up the schedule. But right now, our tentative release date is summer to get the initial or the change that we see here on the screen in, and then we're looking at a little bit later in the winter of this year to get the remaining changes in.
Well, as of June 1st, counties, we have to be doing this work and documenting these exemptions. So where do you think that our workers are documenting these exemptions as of June 1st?
All right, so sometimes the project plan's dates based off of capacity. This is one where we have a hard date on implementation, and that needs to be driving the timeline. So can you guys go back and revisit that so that we won't be without a tool for over a month?
Winter.
Yeah, 3 months? This seems like a miss.
To be clear, ABOD functions. These are enhancements, as Roger mentioned. So ABOD will go live. It's in there. Counties have had access to the environment to be able to work on it and refamiliarize themselves if they haven't used it. especially.
But
So
it-
I just want to be clear that these are enhancements and they're not,
You're talking about the historic ABOD.
Yeah, that's not
That was before, that's.
No one's used it.
Karen, to be clear, what you're referencing though, again, isn't really doesn't really reflect the changes in policy, which I think is what everybody's kind of highlighting here. So yes, the historical environment is still there, unless I'm totally off, which I'm fine with. Can you explain a little bit more about when you say the words, these are going to be enhancements and they've got later dates? I can see why everybody's kind of like, what does that mean? Are these enhancements relative to like how the work flows, but everything come June 1 will be in line with policy, or are these enhancements meant to get us closer to alignment with policy changes associated with ABOD? There's a distinction there.
I would say it's actually a bit of both. To Roger's point, we can take back the ones that are scheduled for winter and see, what capacity we can look at to move them up. These also compete with some of the other HR1 priorities that we have out there. So we will take those back and see what we can do on them.
Yeah, because I think the idea of improving the way work flows and the reporting in this space is, I understand a winter type of timeline. That'll make sense. But from a county perspective, we're held responsible now for ABOD. So we want to make sure that come June 1st, the system is functioning to the greatest. The system is functioning not to the greatest extent possible. The system is functioning with all of the policy requirements that we're responsible for, so that we don't have so that we can lessen the opportunities for our team members who are already going to experience changes. We can lessen the opportunities for errors, because that is something that's all on our minds, given this is part of the quality review perspective. And we want to make sure that our customers are getting accurate benefits at the first pass. So, yeah.
Understood.
Kristen, I will just point out last month too, there's some conversation around ABOD and user friendliness in the system as well, where there was direction to, in the timeline, the state has funding available for system changes, and for user friendliness, it was one of the things that was asked for of if there are other modifications, given the fact that there's already been voicing of the system not being user friendly, on top of not having some of the stuff obviously that we need, to leverage that funding as soon as possible to get those things in sooner rather than later, so that we don't have to retrain on the back end.
And I don't even see these as enhancements. I mean, number 6 here, having documenting a medical condition, that's effective June 1st. Number 4, school attendance detail, that's effective June 1st. These are not enhancements. These are the actual requirements. And CalSAWS is the system we use to run this work. These have to be in place when ABOD starts.
And I don't mean to jump ahead on slides, but I think in the same vein, and I can hush and you guys can tell me to hold on for that if you want, but I noticed on some of the slides coming up, like in the milestone sections, there's call outs to requirements and prioritization and targeted, but there's numbers associated, but because there hasn't been involvement, I don't know what those numbers represent. So like on slide 31, it's like 33 total requirements, 9 requirements targeted, but which ones? So, and the other documents don't have that detail either that were posted for the meeting.
Yeah, and I think that the miss here is the project looks at everything as requirements. We're talking about policy requirements, not all functional requirements. So the policy requirements are where we have a vulnerability and we're not comfortable with it. So we really would like the project to take a look at that and see what can be done, so that we're at least policy compliant come June when it goes into effect. And then, yeah, if there's enhancements on the functional level that are requirements, those could actually be the ones that could be staged, but not the policy adherence requirements.
I think it goes also back to, and thank you, Michael, and everyone who's weighed in, is are the right people in the room when decisions are being made. So my staff some of my staff may absolutely love to say, we don't want to do ABOD till winter because folks are whatever reason, where I'm have to worry about PER. I have to worry about my business. I'm in the business of welfare. May want to sit with my peers and say, absolutely not. the rule is the rule and we're going to comply today. And what do we have to move around to do that? I fully recognize that we may have to give up some really good ideas until we get the mandates in. And then the really good ideas can come after that. But we have a core job to do. And if we can't do our core job, and I'm going to go with something Marla said, if we can't generate number 6, where we know probably a decent size of our population may have a medical condition that precludes them from needing to meet the work requirement, and I can't do it, that's a problem. People are going to lose benefits. My job's not to do that. My job's to comply with the law.
Well, we don't know what that does to our error rate on the opposite end of it, so.
I'm just very surprised to see this slide. I fully expected that ABOT functionality would be in place before we started. I expected it before we start so we can train our staff to how to use it. I'm just surprised, unless I'm just completely misunderstanding this. What I'm seeing is we don't have our ABOT functionality for June 1st. And I just don't know how that's even possible. Counties aren't a partner here. Counties, this is a county system.
So project, go back and rework this. We need to figure out how to resource it. And I think, Ethan hit it right on the head is, this is, prioritizing our work towards the requirements that are going to put us at legal exposure.
So we'll take that back, Michael. We heard, we understand. So we'll take a look at these items, identify those that are policy related, and align those to their effective date so that we're compliant with policy.
Okay, are there other slides?
Not for this section.
Not for this topic on the agenda? Or second?
This was the last one.
That was the last slide, so they're done? Okay, any other comments from our board member state partners on that item?
I would just like to call out that if the Medi-Cal ones have the same issue, they'll need to be revisited.
Yeah, this is not universally applying to CalPERS, only applies to both programs that have requirements that are set in law.
I guess, Julie, I'd like to hear from you here.
We heard the request. Marla, what else? Was there a question?
Well, I guess I'd like to hear from you about kind of what happened here, what's the thinking, what are the next steps that you see here?
The next steps are, as Roger said, is for us to take that back and reevaluate the prioritization of the rollout of those requirements.
Okay. And I guess what I'd like to also see is I'd like to make sure we need to prevent this from happening in the future. So I think when things are getting prioritized, when plans are being made, that somehow has got to get to the JPA for our awareness and for our approval ahead of time. Yeah. So that we don't get to a point like this where here we are, almost too late to course correct here.
Right. Yep. I don't disagree with that. I will say this isn't first time we've communicated, this information. We continue to bring it back so that if there is something that needs to be pivoted on, we're happy to do that. I think the understanding from the team was that at that June 1st, we were at the compliance with the policy. They work with CDS, with our state partners on that. If that is not the case, then we will make adjustments. What we will also say is that we work through the RMs, we work with the counties to get the right people in the room for these work groups. Those notices go out so that you all can make sure that the right people are in the room. We put out the scope of the work group. We ask for who the subject matter experts are. If you all want to pivot those individuals, we're happy to do that. But we rely on the counties to bring the right people forward because we don't know. And so for these work groups, I agree, Ethan, in terms of you need to make sure that the right people are in the room, right? And so to answer your question in terms of how we got here, we also want to make sure that we have the right people in the room, and we 100% agree with that.
And you guys might have brought this up in prior meetings, but it's clarity today that we're seeing that we're in jeopardy here, and so that's why it's being brought to your guys' attention. I do see a partner from DHCS has their hand up, so I want to allow them to speak on this as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to chime in because I know the mention of Medi-Cal got brought up, and I just want to make sure that all of our county partners, and I think I've been very transparent in all aspects, self-sufficiency in the lower TRT meetings, to say we will have systems ready to go for counties for all of our HR1 implementations. We're monitoring this extremely closely on both the CalSAWS and CalHERS and Med side. And so I put it in the chat, but I felt this is so critical that I actually get online and say, we are lockstep with you counties. We will be ready for the Jan 1 first implementation with system readiness as well. And so just know that that is part of the coordination that's happening.
Thanks, Teresa. Appreciate that.
I have a question for JPA council, if I may. What I'm sensing and what I feel is that there is, and this is not necessarily a CalSAWS proper issue, maybe, but where can the directors get together and have this conversation of what we 58 feel is important without jeopardizing the Brown Act? So I know that a lot of us sit in CWDA, actually almost all of the JPA members do. And so if all of us sit and have a conversation, there may or may not be jeopardy. Where can we have that conversation so we as all 58 directors are going the same direction without jeopardizing the JPA issue?
So the directors can't have a discussion as a group, as a majority group, on and discuss and deliberate a matter like this that is within your original subject matter jurisdiction without violating the Brown Act. If you want to have that discussion, this should become an open agenda item. So you should, however, I mean, what I would suggest is, and my understanding is that the chair and vice chair regularly meet with the executive director to establish the agenda for meetings. This may, and however you would characterize this type of discussion, this should become a regular open agenda item for discussion so that at the monthly meeting, this type of discussion is agendized and taking place.
So just to make sure, because that was a lot of legal thing from my brain. As long as we put it on the agenda as an open topic, we can sit and have this blank. Okay.
And that's the way it should occur. Should occur in an open meeting like this. To do it outside of the meeting would be the Brown Act violation.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Charles.
I would like to see from the project a list of all of the people that are involved in these different committees. I know you say, you know, that you've put out an ask for county representatives and you've got county representatives. I'd like to see who they are. And I think we might need to change the process by which you're getting who you want from the counties, because I think we need to make sure that you've got the right people, but I don't know. I don't see the asks that come out for, you know, to put people on committees. So I'm not, as a director, I'm not involved in just getting put on committees, and I don't want to get to one where
I'm not blaming CalSAWS at all for who gets put on committees. You may be asking my county folks who might be not be the right person to put on a committee.
Right.
So it could be our fault.
I do want to just highlight a point though from the conversation. This isn't the first time we pointed out the failure in the timeline. So yes, it has been brought up before. And I think on multiple occasions over the last few months in that presentation, we've said the timeline can't be this. We need to be ready to go. So I just want to highlight that, yes, we're getting more information today, but this is also not the first time we've said that the timeline is not adequate.
If you have an action item that you'll send out a list of who, for all of the CalSAWS committees, every place that CalSAWS is working and has county input, I'd like to see a list of who's on those committees, and what county they're. For all of us, yeah, so we can all, not just my county, but just so we can all see that.
Yeah, I can send it out. I also was going to ask, when we distribute the CRFIs and the CITs, it goes out to various groups of people, right? If you want, I can include.
No, those groups too, that it goes out to. Is that what you're?
It varies on every single
CRFI
and CIT, but what I can do is we have a distribution list in the email that says director.all. If you want director.all added to all CITs and CRFIs, I can do that. So you'll be informed the same time your staff is.
I think when you give us the list of who's on all the committees, why don't you also give us the distribution list so we can review the distribution list? I don't necessarily want to.
The distribution list is different for every single CRFI or CIT. So I wouldn't be able to provide.
I mean,
Yeah.
but how do you create it? You have some list somewhere where you're saying this kind of topic goes to this list of people, right?
So depending on what the subject is or what they're looking for, they may pull in committees, or it may just go to ppOC.all. It may go to the techops.all. It varies. Sometimes it goes to directors.
What's the volume of CRFIs and CIT?
Oh,
That would be my question.
lot.
Before we have them all come to
Yeah.
us directly.
I guess what I'm looking for is, I'm not asking for all CRTs and CRFIs to come to directors. I'm asking for the taxonomy of how you decide where you send stuff. I'd like to kind of see what is that taxonomy about, who gives what, related to what, and so we could just make sure that the right things are going to the right people. Because somebody's making a decision for every email you send out, somebody's made a decision about where it goes, right? Who you're sending it to.
Yeah. There's a list behind everything.
Yeah, there's a list behind it.
That's not a Jen ask, that's a project ask. So
Right.
the project can work on producing that and get that to us. That'll help us make decisions on whether or not we're having the right representatives in these groups and whether we need to elevate them. And I know we don't put the director on every one of these things, but
Okay.
certainly they may have a direct report, or they might have somebody who reports to that direct report who might be the better people to receive this. This project keeps evolving. We need to keep this up to date. So there's a chance to do that. And yes, it's not a Jen request, it's a project.
I just don't know if there's a succinct way to provide
I'm not
that
asking, I'm
decision
not asking you to figure that out.
process.
I figure the project will figure that out for us. We've got a number of highly paid individuals that can figure out how to sort data and get it to us.
So Michael, can I go back?
Yes.
To a comment that was said that counties had opportunities to add in, and that we were told all of this. And I have looked at the last two, while we've been sitting here talking, the last two agendas. And the only slide that's in here, it does lead us to believe that the counties are participating in these work groups.
They are.
But they're not, according to the current slides
What,
in the timelines. So that's my concern or my question on this. If you look at the current slides, when and it's already been pointed out, Michael said, I don't see counties on this list of participants in determining those timelines.
Representation there. Wow.
so
And so we know that they weren't.
that was on the benefits Cal stuff. If we're talking about this like these groups, the ones that are CalSAWs, those are work groups that are solely county work groups that have been working through it. When he was talking to Fred, he was talking about the benefits Cal work groups that are working with the benefits Cal interface and working with the advocates and the public on the design, because there's two sides to, each of a lot of these HR1 implementations. And so the first part was on the core side, and then the other part is on the public side.
Okay.
And so the core side it's like all county.
Okay, so I misunderstood your response then, because I thought you had said that the counties were involved and that we needed to have the right people in the room as far as the rollouts and the timelines in that determination.
Yeah, on the core side.
But here in this, where we're talking about, it's not meeting our needs for
On
timelines.
ABOS, yeah, on ABOS.
I thought you were saying that our staff were in the room for that decision. And then, and according to the slides, it doesn't appear that they were.
I think.
And that we had been told that they were. So I'm just trying to figure out where we need to, where we made the misstep in our conversation so that we can, one, not have it happen in the future. I mean, and two, who do I need to go back and talk to on my team and say, okay, if this is what you're doing and you're in these meetings, I need to make sure this is what you're taking forward.
And
I'm just trying to figure out how do we solve it?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I will say that I've had some conversation with my teams on people that attend some of these work groups and other work groups. And some of the common theme I get back is we're told this is what is going to happen. And we don't feel like, or this is what JPA wants. And we don't feel like we can push back on that, right? And so I've kind of told my team, if there's ever a question that you have on a timeline, on anything, you can ask questions. Not to say that anyone inherently said it on purpose or whatnot, but these are not, again, I'm going to point to, in most instances, these are not executive leaders on these work groups. And so they're not going to, in some of the ways that we would ask questions around timelines and impact, they might hear things to say, this is the timeline, and assume that is golden and that it's already been cleared. So I think that however we help people understand on both sides of intent and impact, on county side and on the project side, I think is important as we work through some of these nuances.
So I know we're getting really short on the agenda.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I just wanted to ask, I mean, obviously, I don't want to leave Frederick and Rogers swinging in the breeze here with,
Yeah.
because this is going to take some reallocation of effort and resources to meet an expected timeline. So I was just going to ask, Julia, if you can work with the team. I don't know what sort of team there is. I just see, Frederick and Roger, or Frederick and Roger.
Yeah.
So if you can work with the team to be responsive to what you've heard here today and hopefully advance that timeline, that'd be fantastic. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I just want to, just not to read, but Becky, 29 was the slide that we were on when we were talking about the timeline for ABOD, and that we wanted to make sure what I heard from Marla and others is the timeline to implement some of that stuff. That's the CalSAS core work group, right? So that one is the one that has had input. Then we pivoted to the slides change. We try to change the format so people, know we're talking about. Then it's the advocate work groups. And those are the ones that did not have county representation that Michael said, make sure that they do. The timelines that you all were, the timeline core was the one that was the one that we were talking about. And you all were saying we probably need to move some things up to make sure we hit the policy requirements.
These were in.
Yes, and they were that was all county. I just want to, I realized we pivoted and it kind of maybe got.
But I don't think that we haven't seen these times before. We were assured in all prior meetings that we would be ready before June 1st. So this is the first time we're seeing these dates that after.
Yeah, I didn't find that many others.
Okay, any other comments from our board members or state partners on this item? No, this has been very robust. I don't mind at all. This is what the meeting is for. Okay,
Exactly.
Yes.
Just one more comment, because I feel like we may have glossed over it a little bit. Francina said something that my team has recently said to me, and it was unexpected to me, was that the folks that we do have going to these committees don't feel that that they have any say in timeliness. Like, they're asked a question to build a process, but they don't feel like they can say, you know what, this is going to be too long. Like, we know what my director is going to say, but then they don't. There's a disconnect in somewhere, whether it's implied, whether it's being said. But when our teams are coming back to us, and mine was more recent, saying, we don't feel like we are, and I'll say as important as the thing, but I think we have to address that at a leadership level to say, I'm empowering my team. When I find out who all of them are, I think I do know who they all are, but they're speaking on my behalf in these meetings. And so to say that they don't feel like they are being heard or that they have any power in it, that's a little disconcerting.
Any other comments, feedback, questions from state partners or board members? Hearing none.
Maybe just
and
one comment from
Brian.
the state perspective as a closeout to all this. I do think the important thing to remember throughout all this is the feds have given us ridiculous, unreasonable timelines on implementing all this in the first place. And so, I think we all owe ourselves a little bit of grace and humility in that, these are crazy rules that have been asked to be implemented very quickly with absurd penalties that are being attached to them. And we're all doing our best. So I understand, it sounds like we probably still have some more work to do to make sure we are ready to go in June. But I do want to acknowledge, I know everyone here has been trying their hardest to get this done as quickly as we can. And so I want to give some grace to that.
Appreciate that, Ryan. I mean, We may not achieve perfection, but we got to strive for it. And the thing is that we got unrealistic timeframes from the feds on getting CalSolve rolled out, and we still figured out how to do it. So we can, reduce our risk. We can, mitigate impact of the public. We just have to make it a priority. And when we see timelines that are contrary to that, we need to make adjustments to them. And that means resources being reallocated and for us to prioritize where their efforts are going to be. So that's what's expected.
And the penalties that, the threat of penalties here is penalties that the counties will pay.
I appreciate all comments and feedback. I will open up to public comment at this point.
Hi, this is Jen. Thanks for this really thoughtful discussion. I just wanted to raise one other part of this timeline in terms of being able to leverage data from MEDS, IHSS, and possibly other state databases that could automatically verify exemptions. I know that there's some kinks in the legal authority for leveraging that data, but I would hope that when it's ready, CalSODS will be ready to batch load that data in a systematic way in order to save workers from needing to conduct manual lookups for those exemptions. So I hope there could be some conversation with the state about figuring out how to get that data match to happen and have it be as timely as possible.
Hey, thank you very much, Jen. We are very committed to that. I know that that's a conversation with the state continuously, so thank you for bringing it to our attention again. We'll go ahead and now move on to the next item, which is a policy and release update. And I see Sharon. I know Sharon very well. And I see Gloria. Are you going to be leading this?
Yeah, I'm on here today.
Hi.
I don't know though.
And then Roger, of course.
Okay, I'll start it out with the Medi-Cal. And this is just a summary of the state budget changes. And the first one that's going in is 2609. And it's not going to be effective until January 1st, 2027. And that's where behind the scenes, we're working with DHCS and changing some of the aid codes. And that's in preparation for the mid-2027 when the premiums come in place for the UIS population. Okay, next slide. So we'll go on to the HR1 policy changes. And for the Medi-Cal team, we have held work groups that are county work groups that have representatives from each region. And so we have something called the mailing address updates. That's also referred to as like NCOA sometimes. And so we're starting out in 2605, where we're expanding upon the return mail that we have through Central Print, and where addresses will be updated based upon return mail into the CalSAWS mailing address, and that's for Medi-Cal cases. And there is a work group that has been involved in the design for that and actually recently approved the design, and that one's in development. In 2606, we're going into the redefinition from the feds on the qualified non-citizens. That's a QNC. For CalSAWS, the portion that we're doing, we're going to get into 2606. Due to changes from CMS on VLP, the CalHER's corresponding portion will be delivered in their September release. The other thing that we're going in 2606, that's not effective until January 1st, 2027, is the reduced timeframes for retroactive Medi-Cal, and that's going from the 3 months over to the 1 and 2 months. The biggies with HR1 in Medi-Cal is in our September release. And what that is a work requirements and community engagement, as well as going to 6-month redeterminations for the Magi new adult group. So what we have done in order to ensure we have the county's voice in the design is, for over a month, we've been holding county work groups to help with the design. And this is totally new functionality, the work requirements, community engagement. So what we have been doing is we're trying to leverage as much of whatever is already in the CalSAWS system. And also there are new unique requirements for Medi-Cal, these work requirements for the exemptions, as well as meeting the requirements. And so, we've been working with the counties on the design. DHCS and CWDA is also joins in on those work groups. So together, we're designing this. As a side note, as you all know, that for Medi-Cal, we're highly integrated, and there's a strong interdependency with Cal HERES. And so from the beginning, what DHCS did was they pulled all the systems together, CWDA, even covered Cal, and got together and put out a plan for HR1 and how we're going to work together. The other thing is, in addition to the work groups that we're having for CalSAWS, they're also regular, multi times a week design work groups with Cal HERES, CalSAWS, CWDA, DHCS. And so there's a lot of activity going on there. Next slide. As we go on in the year, the next change we're going to be making to the mailing addresses is the NCOA, automating the discontinuances for Paris as well as RVP. And then as we go on, there are other changes, additional changes. Okay, now I will hand it off to Roger. Oh, this is just some more changes.
All right, thank you, Sharon. I know we're over on time here, so I'm going to speed us up here. For the CalFresh and CalWorks may revise in HR1 policy implementation roadmap. There have been no changes since our last meeting. Those SCRs remain on track for the scheduled implementation dates. And again, considering the conversation we just had, we'll be looking at those policy-related work group requirements that have come up to get those aligned to the policy effective dates. If we can go back 2 slides, I believe. Yes, right here. Just want to highlight here that at the end of this month, we do have the CalFresh non-citizen HR1 eligibility policy changes being implemented. This is the change which will limit CalFresh eligibility to U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, and a few other eligible populations. If we can move to the next section, our CalFresh system enhancements. One more, slide 41. So here we have our CalFresh system enhancements aimed at improving processing efficiency and helping reduce error rates. Similar to the previous update, no changes to the scheduled releases for these items. Do want to again highlight that we do have a March baseline release scheduled for the 23rd this month, where we have 7 system enhancements targeted for implementation. The most significant being the automation of the payment verification data processing. The project did host a dedicated demo this past Wednesday. We had over 600 county participants attend to introduce the new functionality and address any questions that came out of that demo. One additional item to note is that as those work group requirements become system change requests, we will be including them in this section, and they are identified by a reference to the work group at the beginning of their description. We can move to slide 43, please. So slide 43 covers our upcoming outreach efforts. In addition to the PBS automation demo that was held this Wednesday, we also have job aids and quick guides that are being developed. And then for the HR1 ABOD policy changes targeted for May 18th, we'll be hosting a dedicated demo of this new functionality, and that's actually been scheduled now for May 12th at 2:30 p.m. So we'll be updating the slide. And then other supporting materials that we have with that implementation are job aids, quick guides, and updates to our web-based training. I'll now pass it over to Gloria to cover our release update.
All righty. Happy Friday, everyone. So I'm just going to kind of pretty much on this upcoming release slides. A lot of this has already been discussed, but I'll go ahead and talk about what's happening for March. For our March release, we're on target. This in preparation for implementation and deployment. So we do identify our poverty level, our 2026 federal poverty level for Medi-Cal Dakota. We're adding our 9YA code for our foster care families. We're having our update to our CalFresh and CalWorks indigent functionality. We also created our meds alerts performance standard dashboards. That'll all be happening this coming release for March, coming up on the 23rd, and these other various dates that are shown here. Additionally, we have a priority release for April, which Roger had already covered that. And here's our May schedule. We identified some HR1 items for May, and then as well for June. Noting with the discussion we just had, some of this may change. So in future updates, we might have some additional changes in SCRs that might be going in future releases. So that'll be up and coming, so you'll know as we take it back with the team. Next slide, please. So our testing, we are at about complete with our testing for 2603. This is our update on 2603. We've had our releases go out, our webcasts, our newsletter, our release notes, all of that is scheduled and has either gone out or on target to go out. Our deployment for Greenlight is on 3/18. That's coming up this week. And our deployment date is 3/22, making it available for release for our counties on the 23rd. And that's my spiel for our release update. Any questions?
Any questions, comments from our board members, state partners? Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to dispatch with the last two items on the agenda and we'll pull them up on the next round, and any materials that support them, if they can be sent out, and that way we can review them in the transition and also the conference. We're already over, so my apologies, but there were discussions that needed to happen. Our next meeting is April 10th. Bless you.
Can I ask one question before, just a quick thing? I know that I don't know who all responded to why I know that my county is not attending the conference. But I just don't know that we got an answer. Is it possible for the JPA meeting of the conference to have a virtual link?
The conference rooms, the ballrooms are too big. We wouldn't be able to have an effective, it would be very challenging to have an effective meeting.
Like, are members going to be at the front table like usual, or is it?
Yeah, but it's a member representatives meeting, so all 58, and they're all scattered throughout the ballroom.
Camera. They have to be visible in the.
I mean, we don't have to have a camera, that's,
Well, I mean,
but doing a conference call in a large ballroom has not proved to be very feasible in the past.
Then I'll just note that I won't be present for that meeting.
You won't be able to make that one. All right, she may not be the only one, so take that back to the project to look at like what kind of, even if it isn't the most convenient way to participate, whether we can have a remote participation in this, just because I know that some counties are challenged fiscally as well, whether or not they might be able to do that. So let's do another action item for the project, that is to create a virtual option. Thank you, friends. I appreciate bringing that up. Our next meeting is Friday, April 10th. It'll be after the CWDA directors meeting as this was. Thank you all for robust participation and enjoy the rest of your Friday. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.